Hi everyone, great to see you again today. Welcome to BERNINA Canada Facebook Live. My name is Adrienne Gallagher and it sure is a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm just going to make sure my feed is coming up. It takes about 10 seconds, so I never know what's happening till it's happening or after it's happening. Hope everyone is well, staying safe, and in Ontario we're enjoying the last bits of lovely weather, so hope you're able to do that too, or have some fun time sewing. So that would be great too. Good, I'm glad you joined me here. That's great. Hi, Paul and everyone. Sonia, nice to see you again. Hey, Dia, how's it going? All right, well, welcome. Today is, I can't remember the date, it's in November sometime, and we're talking about how to personalize your Bernina sewing machine. And what's great about Bernina's, computerized Berninas, is you can control how the machine works, functions, stops, starts, all these great things. And I feel that a lot of people don't take advantage of these great features. So today we're going to talk about ways to personalize your Bernina machine, including displays, sounds, language, lighting, and sewing functions. When I first started my notes for this, I was sure this was going to be a 5-minute presentation, but I found more interesting stuff for you. If you're interested in what I have to say today and you want to learn more, my address, you can find this information and more in the Bernina Mastery Guides available on bernina.com/en Canada, and look for the tab that's Learn and Create. And they're right in there, and you'll see the current models listed there. If you have an older model, you can just Google the Mastery workbooks. They're free, and you can use them, print them, put them on your tablet, share them with your friends. They're free for us to use and learn to enjoy our sewing machines. All right, so today we are going to look at ways to personalize your Bernina sewing machine to make your sewing experience much more enjoyable. I certainly love to customize my machine to the job that I'm doing. And another reason is that you want it to perform exactly the way you want it to perform. And third thing is it might speed up your sewing. I'm not so concerned about speeding up my sewing. I'm starting to turn into a slow sewer. I'm just enjoying the process, and I hope you will too. All right, so I'm going to switch over. You can type in the comments where you're viewing from. You can type in your machine questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. You can tell me what you're doing today or what you're going to sew next. Can't wait to hear what you're doing too as I move over to the sewing machine. All right, I'll see you there. Oh, I'm so glad so many of you are joining us today. That's really great. All right, so one of the first things you might want to do to personalize your sewing machine is to change the color of the screen. The default color for all Berninas is blue. I don't know why it's blue. I think it's because it's very easy to read with a blue background. I personally prefer red, so let's change it to red. All right, so the way you do that on many machines, today I'm using a Bernina 590, but you would go to the settings button, and on the 590 it's actually hidden. Let me just move this over a little bit so you can see. There you go. I'm gonna just, there, now you can see all the buttons. All right, so on this machine you actually have to go into the settings here and select the settings. And you're looking for the personalization icon, and it's right there. And here you can select any of the available colors. And you can kind of preview them on the screen. There's gold. Let's go with Bernina red, shall we? And on the right-hand side, you may have some available textures. These do vary a little bit machine from machine, but I think I'm going to go with this really cool sort of shell shape and select that. You'll also notice there are some words here, and you can actually change those words for a little subliminal message every time you turn the machine on. It's simple to edit. You just type there, delete what you want to say. What do we want to say today? We're going to do something like, so beautiful, because today is a beautiful day. If I'm talking sewing, it's the best day ever. I really love the chance to talk with my sewing friends. So I'm going to say so beautiful. Okay. And now when I turn my machine off and I turn it on, it gives me a little message in the morning that says so beautiful. Or you could say anything you want there, anything at all. In fact, at my home, my machine says, I'm just saying, because my friend Allie programmed it that way. Thanks, Allie. So that's how easy it is to change the appearance of your screen. Now I have a beautiful red screen. Isn't that cool? Another thing you can do is change the sounds on your machine. So every time I touch the screen, I get a little bit of a sound, and I really like that because it lets me know that I'm engaging with the buttons. Similarly, in the function buttons, you can make those have a sound or not. So let me show you where we can adjust the sounds on our machine. All right, so guess what? We're going back to settings. So on this machine, it's home and then settings. And you are looking for, we're doing sounds, right? Okay, there's the sounds right there, sounds icon. And here are 3 different options, depending on your machine, but this machine has 3 options. These are the sounds for the sewing function. So when I select a sewing stitch, the second grouping here is for the function selection. So when I was doing mirror image and stuff like that. And the third function is for the BSR, whether you want the beeper on or off. So now it's going to be off, but I like the beeper on. So when I free motion stitch too quickly, it will give me the indication that I'm going too quickly. But you can turn that on or off. For some people who are hearing impaired and use a device to help them hear, that's a really irritating sound. You can turn it off right here. And there are various other sounds for the sewing function. I use number 1, which is just like a little click sound, but there are more sounds. 2 is a double tap sound. 3 is like a chirp. That's cute. And 4 is really loud. Oh, it used to be very loud on my machine. Or you can choose no sound, which I find just challenging because I like to hear that I've engaged with the button. But here's where you can change your sounds, or you can turn all the sounds off on your machine if you need a silent machine. If you're sewing and there's sleeping children or partners in the next room, or your furry friend. But I like my sounds on. All right, so you can customize your machine with the sounds. Pretty great. All right. So those are pretty easy. Another thing you might want is if your native language is not English, you can actually change the language on your machine, and that is under settings, and look for the globe. So that is under sewing machine, and then you look for the globe. And here I can select a number of different languages. I don't even know all of those, but we add more all the time. So if you're more comfortable in another language, we have options for you. Great. All right, so we've already covered a few different ways we could certainly customize our sewing machines. We've got display, the screen color, the message, sounds, and language. What about lighting? Sometimes people don't like the bright lighting. It doesn't always work. Sometimes if you have tone-on-tone fabric and thread, it doesn't work. And let me just show you what I did. I went too quickly. I want to show you something in Bernina land that we call breadcrumbs. Okay, let's go back into languages. So you see another little breadcrumb came up right here, that globe. So first I selected settings, then I selected the sewing machine, and then I selected the globe to get me to the languages. If I close this window, it'll take me right back to sewing. But if I want to just go back one step, I can follow the breadcrumbs back to the last folder I was in. So I could skip just back to the sewing machine, or I could skip back to settings. And that's a really handy way to navigate this machine. I hope you'll give it a try when you get a chance. So I was talking about changing the lighting on your machine. I wonder if anybody's changed this. If you go under the sewing machine and you check the light bulb, you should have some options here. to adjust your sewing machine. So let's look at that. All right, so the top one is adjusting the lighting on the screen. So let me show you what that looks like. So it's actually going to change the contrast on the screen. So if you find the screen too bright, you can certainly adjust it there. And the other one at the bottom actually affects the sewing light. So let me just zoom out a bit. There, you can see the sewing light now. Let me see. There you go. So as I adjust the sewing light here, you can see it gets dimmer. Oh, I have extra lighting on my... Yeah, so it actually is dimming the light here around the foot. Did you see that? It's hard to see because I have added light here. So I leave it on the brightest, but sometimes that's too bright. If I'm doing black thread on black, I tend to not be able to see the thread, especially if I'm free motioning. So I'll bring the lighting down, and I'm able to see better, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've tried that. If you've tried that, let me know. You can also turn the sewing light right off if you choose to. Some people use their own lighting system and they don't like the sewing light. And that's where I'm going to turn it back on because I love it. I made a change to the lighting down to 50%. So I know that because it's got a yellow box around it. If I want to go back to the factory setting of having 100% of the light on, I can just touch the bounding box and it'll go back to the factory setting. And we've discussed this before, but just a little reminder that when you make an adjustment and it's yellow to indicate a change, to go back to the factory setting, you just touch the yellow bounded box. Pretty easy, right? All right, so there's a couple more ways that you can customize your machine to your liking. I don't know if anybody's adjusted the lighting on their machine, but it does come in handy sometimes. All right, now I want to talk about the more serious adjustments. Yes, I'm talking about sewing machine functions. So here's a question I get a lot of the time. The BERNINA sewing machines come with the ability to have a tie off every time you begin sewing. So let's look at the machine for that. Hang on a second. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's go back to straight stitch. Just regular straight stitch. Let's go down to the machine. Let me show you. When I start to sew, it's going to tie a knot to secure. So as I started sewing, it secured it in place. Let's try that again. All right, if you want to change that it does or does not secure the stitch, you can change that in the menu. Let me show you how to do that. Anybody dizzy yet? No, you're doing fine. Good job. All right, so again, we're going to go to the, what do you call that, home button and find settings. And you're going to go into sewing machine settings, and it is right there. This is the securing function, and you can just turn it on or turn it off. And now the machine will, right now it's set to not sew a securing stitch at the beginning of a stitch, or I can have it always secure the stitch. So for example, when we're doing patchwork quilting, we really don't need the machine to make a securing stitch because all those seams are going to be crossed over again. It's just a waste of time, energy, and thread. So we can turn the stitches off. Or if you're going to pull up your thread anyway to tie it off, you don't need securing stitches. So there you go. That's where you can deactivate or activate beginning sewing tie off. All right, that's an easy one. I know many of you have done that before. All right, next one I want to talk about is the thread cutter. So if you look at the front of your machine, right, here's my machine, my 590. This is the thread cutter button I'm talking about. There we go. The scissors button, the button that cuts the threads. You can have this button do multiple things, not just cut threads. Let's look at the programming for that. Oh, we have to zoom out, Adrienne. All right, so the programming for that is in settings. I don't need to go all the way out of settings. I can just follow the breadcrumbs out Back to setting. Oh, I can do it right from here actually. I want to program the buttons. I'm going to show you that one again. This is the programming the buttons. See, it looks like a hand programming the buttons on the front of the machine. That's the one we want. So we select that. We look for the scissors button and select that. And now I can turn a securing stitch on. So on this machine, I can ask it to tie a knot before it cuts the threads. Woo! That is awesome. Let's look at what that looks like when we sew. I use this all the time. So back to sewing. Look at the machine. We're going to do a straight stitch. And okay, we've finished our stitch. We've finished our seam. We're going to cut the threads. And you're going to notice it'll do a securing stitch and then cut the threads. Awesome! It cut the threads for me. It tied a little knot. I love this feature. And you saw how easy it was to program it. So you could definitely put it on for a project that requires a little securing stitch. Or if you need to turn it off, it's as easy as going back into the programming and turning it off. So I'll remind you where that is. It's in, oh, you're not on the screen, sorry. It's in settings, and it's under sewing stitches and programming right there. All right, and then that's where you can change your, program the button on the front of your machine. One of the great advantages of a Bernina machine is that you are in control. You have total control over every stitch. We call it total stitch control. You get to program exactly what the machine is going to do and be in control all the time. Wow, thanks everybody for watching. This is great. We've got lots of people. I will continue on. Another thing that you can certainly program is the pattern end button. So that's this one here. So when you we've talked about pattern end a few times, how the pattern, if you were doing a heart, it would stitch out the complete heart. And then you can have the machine do a custom finish for you. So let me show you. You can have it tie a knot, cut the stitches, and lift the foot. Right now I have it selected to just cut the stitches and lift the foot. I think I'm going to add the knot. Let's add the securing stitch. I have two options for securing stitches. I can do it on the spot, or I can select to have sort of like a running stitch. So quilters sometimes we like that. And then I can choose how many stitches I want. From 3 on this machine to 6 stitches. Yeah, so I'm going to go with the factory setting 4. Let's see what that looks like. So pattern end, I hit the pattern end button. It's going to complete the stitch, tie a knot, cut the stitches, and lift the presser foot for me. This is the Bernina lifestyle, friends. This is the most fun. Let's pick a pattern to test this with. Let's pick just a little doodad. Let's do a maple leaf. All right, so I'm just going to stitch one of these out halfway through. I'm going to press the pattern end button so that it just finishes one maple leaf. Okay, pattern end is right here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see everything. All right, there we go. So I'm just going to let it start to stitch. When it starts to stitch, I'm going to hit pattern end so it only does one iteration of the maple leaf. Here we go. Pattern end, activated, let's finish the leaf, tied a knot, and cut the stitches and lifted the presser foot. All in one easy step because I programmed the machine to do that. So, and I can turn that off, I can turn that on for any project. Isn't that great? I just love that feature. I use that feature all the time. So what we did was we programmed this button, the pattern end button. Well, it's kind of dark, but if I hit it, you can see it. There it is, pattern end. All right, cool. Another one that you can certainly program is the needle stop drop button. So that's right here. I'm going to show you that button. Sorry. Okay. So sometimes when you're sewing, you want the needle to stop always in the down position. And in combination with this feature is our hover feature, which means it'll allow the presser foot to come up and hold, the needle will hold your project in place, but the foot will come up and hover so that you can make an adjustment. Let me show you where that is and what that looks like. So again, you're going to go into the settings and you're going to go back into sewing settings and the programming. You can see all my breadcrumbs up here. Settings, sewing settings, programming. And this is related to the needle up down button right here. And here it is. So when the needle is down and the machine is stopped, what would I like the machine to do? Would I like it to stop and hold the fabric for me? I could do that. This video is showing me something else where the machine will stop and lift slightly so that I could pivot my project a little bit. That's another option. The third option is similar to the second one, where when you stop, the needle will hold the fabric down, but the foot will raise to the very, very top. This is really useful if you have something that you're working on that has a lot of pile, or you're working on repairing the edge of a duvet comforter and you need to have the foot all the way up so that you can adjust the stuffing underneath the pillow, something like that. So this is very customizable. So a lot of the time we like to use this middle one. I'll show you what it looks like when you sew. This has to be engaged with the needle down function or it won't hover. And I'll show you the difference here. All right. Back down to the project. Here we go. All right, so I have needle down. We've programmed needle down. We're going to sew and we're going to stop. And the foot just lifts a little bit so that now I can pivot my work. Continue on. When I hit stop, I can hover and down. If you don't like that feature, which I love this feature sometimes, but sometimes I want it to hold my work still so I don't get any wobbles while I readjust my hands, you can easily turn it off. Back in the settings, you go to the sewing settings, go back into sewing and programming, and in the needle down, just put it to regular. That's how easy it is to unprogram or reprogram your needle up, down, and hover feature. Yes! Awesome! I can get this machine to do exactly what I want. Woohoo! I have one more little customization that I like to do on my sewing machine, and it is related to my foot control. My foot control can do many, many things. In settings, if you go to sewing settings, you see the image of the foot control here. So the heel kick is programmable on many of our models. I have a B480 at home. The 7 series, many of them are programmable. 770, 750, 770, 790, 880, those are all programmable. And if you go in here, you can see the options that you have. You have options to make your foot control do things automagically for you. So the default section, the default selection is this, where when you hit the heel, it will just do needle down for you. And you can actually see that that is on the machine. That's the heel kick button of the foot control. So the default is that it will just raise the needle if the needle is down. It will lower the needle if the needle is up. But if you want, you can customize it, of course. Hey Diane, how are you? You can customize it to do many things. So let's see what we could do. We could add a securing stitch on the spot or in a line. I like on the spot. We could get it to cut the stitches, cut the threads for us. And yep, I'm gonna have it raise the presser foot too. Sure, that looks good to me. All right, let's show you what that looks like when you sew. All right, going back to sewing. So here I am. I'm sewing along, I'm sewing along, I'm sewing along. I've come to the end of my project. I'm done. All I do now is with the click of my heel, Dorothy, yes indeed, I just click this with my heel and it will tie a knot, cut the threads, and lift my presser foot. This is a good time for me to take a sip of my tea while it does this. I have to be fast because it does it fast. Don't blink. Here we go. I'm going to click it. 1, 2, 3, click. Oh, there we go. Yes. Auto magically does that all for me. It tied a little securing stitch. It cut the threads and it lifted the presser foot. So now I'm ready to pick this up and work on the next seam. Yay, that's awesome. Awesome, that's so great. So Diane just joined us. Nice to see you, Diane. And she's saying, does the heel kick work in the same way on the Q16? Yes and no, Diane. On the Q16, the heel kick acts as up and down, or you can program it to act as a start-stop button, so you don't have to start and stop with your hands all the time. You're so lucky, Diane. We'll have to do another class on that. That would be amazing. Does anybody else have any questions on customizing your sewing machine? So the great thing about customizing your sewing machine is that you control exactly how it's going to sew out. You control exactly how it's going to handle the needle down with the hover or no hover. Maybe you have slippery fabrics, you don't want it to hover. Maybe you use your knee lift, so you don't need hover. You're in total control all the time. Isn't that cool? Well, we did it. We learned how to program our machines, how to customize it for all of our sewing needs to make it work exactly the way that we want it to. I just love that about digital machines. They give us a lot of flexibility in that way, a lot of control. Still a sewing machine, but I get to tweak it so it works exactly just for me. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed my tips on how to personalize your sewing machine. Of course, there's lots more tips. Remember, in the mastery guide for your sewing machine, Diane, there's one for Q series as well. But definitely check that out because there's 50 something pages of great learnings in this. This is usually the dealer training. Your Bernina dealer will give this to you as your new machine owner's class. Some of those classes, of course, cannot run right now, but of course you can learn this on your own at home. If you're waiting for your Bernina sewing machine to be delivered to your house or your store, you can download this and start learning right away. Remember, we have Bernina simulators. You can even download the simulator for your machine and practice programming your buttons on your sewing machine. Yes, that sounds exciting to me. And of course, our Burnett's have mastery guides as well. So we're not forgetting our Burnett friends either. So you're in on this party as well. You get to learn all the great things your machine can do. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Our next Facebook Live is in 2 weeks, and the topic is going to be sewing, quilting, and embroidering with metallic threads. How to make it work for you, because sometimes those threads can be difficult to work with. So I'll see you in 2 weeks on November 19th at 3 p.m. I also have a webinar, a live webinar coming up also on the 19th, but it's at 1 o'clock, and it's on the new Bernina sergers that have air threading. So you can imagine how excited I am to show you all the things those machines can do. We have an overlocker and we have a combination overlocker cover hem machine with computerization. You know I'm going to personalize the heck out of that one. And yeah, those are the upcoming new live presentations. I hope I'll see you there. I will send out some links on how to find mastery books, how to find the Serger webinar and sign up for it. And otherwise, have fun sewing. Try something new, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone. Ciao.